Disney's coming in hot with some peak Tron content. We've got new promo images, updates on the second trailer of Tron Ares, as well as some extra details that we'll go over in a few moments. But we gotta start off with this absolutely breathtaking poster right here. I would go as far as to say it is a top 3 Tron poster of all time. You gotta let me know down below if you agree with me on that. But this poster, Ares is on his light cycle, going down the city. The colors are just perfect. The cityscape being in blue contrasts so well with the red light cycle. Now, if we were gonna give this like a timeline, this could be during the police chase scene that we actually saw in the trailer. Maybe later on after he takes out his light wall, he takes out his disc to try to give them the finishing blow. I could see this happening maybe before the last poster that we came out where Ares has parked the bike. There's also an animated version of this with neon lights and everything. Anyways, moving on to the next image, it's very lore heavy. We've got Eve Kim right here and her assistant, and with the context of the leaked trailer that came out last year in August, this is very likely Flynns Arcade, and you can see a Space Paranoids machine behind them. So as Sam fixed up his father's Ducati bike, it's also possible that after Legacy, he fixed up Flynns Arcade, and it is a very successful business, similar to Dave & Buster's, for example. I saw somebody in the Tron community Discord give that comparison. And before continuing with this photo, I want to talk about Sam Flynn a little bit more, just because Garrett Hedlund has been interviewed quite a bit. He was interviewed multiple times last year, basically saying that if Ares was successful, that there would be a sequel with Sam and Cora. Now, he's actually said that multiple more times in interviews this year, as well as at conventions. So the fact that he continues to say this when he's asked does give me great optimism regarding that specific storyline. Obviously, we know Eve is a programmer, so she's probably working on something in a very tense moment, and it looks like she's working on like an older computer, kind of like an older Macintosh, and there's this big gun in the background, and I believe that this is a version of the Shiva laser, and it's not confirmed, but I do have a theory thanks to the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because during season 7 of that show, they were dealing with cyberspace a lot, and it was actually quite similar to Tron. There was an episode there where there was digital animals and creatures being digitized into the real world, and the only way that they were able to get rid of them was to use dart blasters, which would turn them back into data, or in the case of these programs, it would send them back to the grid. And that would explain why we see Athena turn to dust in the trailer. Maybe she's not derezzing, but she's being sent back to Dillinger Systems grid. Now, I did theorize some of this in my trailer breakdown video, but I think that this image helps frame that a little bit better, because it looks as if the invasion is so severe that Flynns Arcade is the only safe haven left. Maybe the technology there is the best to defeat this entire army, because they would obviously have control of Dillinger Systems, and they might have even taken over Encom, since you can see a recognizer flying over the building at the end of the last trailer. But moving on to the next photo, this one is of 3 different programs, obviously in red circuitry, and it connects to a shot in that leaked trailer last year where we saw Ares walking and it was like upside down. It looks like a force field is here blocking them from entering possibly the portal or blocking a certain section of the grid. Now, based on the circuitry, we know Ares is the first program. The second one very likely is Athena, but we obviously don't have that confirmed. And then the third one, you can tell, is a different program, but we have absolutely no idea who that is at all. And we know that it isn't Eve simply because in footage she's been wearing a white suit, but either way, it's likely they're breaking out of the grid for the first time or into another system like the Legacy grid. This looks like it could be the Outlands, but the sky is a little bright, so it's hard to say. Maybe it's the worlds merging together. That was a big theory on Reddit. I went over it as well previously. Now, we got 4 official promo images. There's a 5th one, and it's more of just a nice light cycle shot, but the 4th one is of Athena. If we look at her, she's likely in the dart, maybe a recognizer, but I think it's the dart since there was set footage of her coming off of it last year. But this photo, it looks great, and you can actually see her close up in HD, unlike before it was just set photos. But this Empire article of this photo, we hear from Jodie Turner-Smith herself that Athena is in, quote, her villain era. She's hardcore and fierce, strong and loyal, and this is exactly how Diz Insider explained it 2 years ago. So the leaks were 100% true, and everything we've talked about thus far is legit. So it looks like Julian Dillinger will be the villain of the first 1 or 2 acts, and then she'll be the villain of the 3rd act. And maybe it'll be more more nuanced than that, where she's not necessarily the villain at the end. It's more of just a conflict, because as we know, Jared Leto's character Ares is gonna kind of go from being a full villain to more of an anti-hero. So it makes sense in my eyes that maybe by the end there really isn't a villain definitively, but this image does look great, and you can actually notice that she does not have eyebrows, and she actually went into detail about that. It wasn't the director Joachim Roning's decision, that it was actually her decision, that she thought it would look better with the design. I don't know how she would have looked with her eyebrows, but either way, cool character design overall. I have no complaints. Now, these images were attached to interviews with the cast. We didn't get the full interviews just yet. They're coming out next week on July 3rd. Now, one of the main quotes I want to talk about from the director Joachim Ronning is the fact that this film will feel like it's being filmed by a robot, basically like a program filming a program. And this is a pretty cool approach, simply because the first two films are users going into the grid, so it's a very human experience in the digital world, and it's being flipped this time, so it's a program in a human experience. So that does make sense. I like that perspective. And then there was another quote from Jeff Bridges regarding his return, and obviously we don't know why Flynn or Clue or both of them are back in this movie. Initially, when Jeff Bridges found out about this, he was also quite surprised, because his story came to a natural conclusion at the end of Legacy. But as he says, within the grid anything is possible, and we obviously know with the plot serious stuff is going on, so everything is going to be made perfectly clear eventually, though it does suck that he wasn't able to fully explain even a little bit what's going on. But let's shift our gears to Nine Inch Nails. We went over all the art. There was an Empire interview with Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross regarding their soundtrack, and they actually got approached to do this when they were working on Pixar's Soul. They explain it as sounding precise and unpleasant, and it's a very punishing score, and they want to create the feeling of a lack of soul, because obviously AI is infiltrating our everyday lives. I do have optimism that this will be fantastic. Now let's discuss the second trailer, because that is 100% coming at the end of July. Many in the San Diego area began to notice Tron Ares posters being put up next to Comic-Con posters, and shortly after that it was announced that Tron Ares would have a Hall H panel, which is amazing, and it does make perfect sense because the movie's so close to dropping. And shortly after the Comic-Con panel, there's usually a trailer. Now 2025 isn't just the year of Tron Ares, because there's other stuff that's come out and will come out as well. For example, Tron Catalyst came out a couple weeks ago. I'm 80% through it, and it is amazing. I've given it like an 8.5 out of 10. It is one of the best games I've ever played. But we've also got other stuff that has yet to release. We are getting a new little golden book of the 1982 Tron film. It's going to retell the story in about 24 pages, and the art is brand new. It looks amazing, and this book is coming out on September 2nd, so you can pre-order it on Amazon if you would like. And this isn't the only book coming out on September 2nd, as another book that's going to combine the comic adaptation of the original movie, Tron Betrayal, which bridges the gap between the first two movies, and the official script of the first movie. So it's basically combining everything that's been released already into one book to prepare you for Tron Ares, and I'm really happy about that. But I wish and hope that we do get a tie-in book for Ares, new material. It'd just be great to bridge the gap even more, but we'll have to wait and see regarding that. Now I want to end off this video talking about the Tron toy lineup, because it's extremely likely that we will get our first look at some of these toys at Comic-Con. Now we don't know who's doing these action figures. We obviously have had the Diamond Select toy versions for years, and we're still getting new ones. There's also the Funko Pops that are coming, so it's basically a toss-up. It could be Spin Master like it was for Legacy. It could be Hasbro, especially since the design director of Hasbro was making Tron posts when the Ares trailer dropped, so I wouldn't be surprised if they end up doing it. But we also have Super 7, who also did Tron figures, but any of them could end up doing it. That's all the information we currently have regarding Tron. I'll be sure to make future videos on new information that comes out, as always. But what do you think about this news? Let me know down below, and be sure to join the Tron community Discord server. We talk about Tron there 24/7.